This video is going to be a little bit different than our other fireside chats. Sorry, I say a lot. Nick points that out to me. Trying really hard. Keep wanting to say it. This one is going to be kind of my medical story. There it is. So this one is going to be a little bit more, sorry. The tone is going to be a little bit not as happy and carefree as we normally are, because it's not an easy story to tell. The reason why we both felt like we wanted to tell this story, though, is because we know of and personally know and have heard a lot of other people that have had similar stories, and kind of wanted to give people hope that it is possible to heal naturally, to get past a really difficult time. I think that's the majority of why we want to tell this story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the story goes back probably 10 years,
10 years or more.
somewhere around there.
I'll try. Me describing what happened is going to take the longest amount of time. Sorry. It was probably over 10 years ago. When I first started getting sick, it felt mostly reproductive organ related, and then it started morphing into more my intestines and gastrointestinal issues. So I went back and forth between different gynecologists and different gastroenterologists to try to figure out what was going on. I went through all these different tests and no one could tell me anything of what was going on. Went to multiple gastroenterologists. I had a colonoscopy. They couldn't find anything. The gynecologist I went to ended up saying that they thought I had endometriosis. So they put me on birth control pills for that to see if that would help any of my symptoms. It did not. It also completely changed my personality when I was on those hormone pills. I
At that
felt
at that point, it became tough for me because the birth control pills changed her personality enough that she wasn't the same person. She wasn't the loving wife that I had
happy.
married, and she wasn't happy, and she was angry, and
I
it was the pills that were doing it at
I
that point.
remember the only feelings I could experience was absolute despair and anger. I couldn't feel happy, joy, love. I remember at one point looking at Nick and thinking, I can't love him. I cannot feel it. I knew in my mind, I knew that I loved him, but I could not feel it. And that was terrifying to me to feel so completely unlike me. And I knew he experienced as well because I wasn't interacting with him like I normally did. I wasn't the same person I normally was. Um,
I'm not the type of person that needs a lot of reassurance with that, but every so often I do. And when I ask for the reassurance
I couldn't give it
and
to you.
she couldn't tell me that she loved me, she told me the opposite. And
I didn't say I
uh,
hated you, but I said I
I
can't tell
can't
you.
love you. I don't love you right now.
Yeah.
I know that I did, but I'm not sure that I do now. And that's tough to be in that position. But anyhow, moving on. We
So those weren't in to top it off, those didn't help my symptoms at all. So when we went back to the gynecologist, she wanted to do surgery for the endometriosis to remove any lesions there might have been. And she took me off the birth control pills. They went in laparoscopically, and turns out I did not have endometriosis. She actually said I looked incredibly healthy inside. We had discussed it beforehand, though, and we asked her if she would remove my uterus while she was in there. We did not want to have kids at that point, and I was having so much pain. I was passing out during my periods from how much pain I was in. I was taking so many pills a day just to cut the edge off the pain, and it wasn't helping that much.
And
So
that's not a normal thing for a gynecologist to do a partial hysterectomy,
yeah,
especially at her
I
age.
was 29. That is
So
unheard of for
that's
a.
that doesn't happen often.
We were very blessed to have somebody that was willing to do it, and just I love kids. We both love kids, but that has never been something we have wanted for ourselves, and we don't regret that decision at all. Um,
So moving on.
moving on from that. So that part after my hysterectomy was better. I wasn't in the excruciating pain constantly, but my symptoms kept getting worse. Um, I still had the intestinal pain that was getting worse and worse. I The doctors couldn't give me any answers. None of my tests came back showing anything was wrong with me.
The doctors were happy because they're like, "Oh, well, it's not cancer. It's not this. It's not that." And
We just kept
that
getting
was all good
we were just kept getting
news,
more and more frustrated.
but it was frustrating because it's like, if it's not these things, what is it?
Yeah.
And they kept going through it with a fine-tooth comb further and further to where, okay, well, it's not this and it's not this, and then we started narrowing it down to rare and odd things, and it's not this and it's not that, and we were getting very frustrated because no one had any answers.
So I have a background in nutrition. So when they couldn't give me any answers, I started trying to modify my diet, and I took extensive notes every day on what I ate, how I felt,
How your
um,
bowel movements were every detail of everything.
to try to track to find anything that was helping. And the diet helped quite a bit. I was able to rule out anything that made me inflamed, that gave me a lot of pain. Um, but it kept, even with me doing that, it kept getting worse and worse. At a certain point, I basically could eat broccoli, I think brown rice, and like fish or chicken. No oils, nothing
No
processed,
sugars,
no
no
sugar
grains,
whatsoever.
no
Like I
meats
could
other
have
than,
brown rice, but that
yeah,
was
no
it.
dairy at all.
No, I eating was a chore. I hated eating. I hated having to do it. It made me cry. I was so frustrated because I was trying so hard and I had done so much, and it felt like if I ate just that, I felt ill, but not deathly ill. But it kept getting worse. Um then it started becoming neurological issues. I was having nerve pain. I was having panic attack symptoms that would last for hours. What else? I was having extreme brain fog. I
At a
they
certain point,
A doctor said
we,
that I was acting like someone who had a severe brain injury.
and we would go into the doctor, and she would write down the things that she wanted me to tell the doctor for her, and trying to come up with maybe questions that the doctor would ask, because when we got in there, she could not put a sentence together. She got to the point where she could barely speak because she wasn't able
To think of
to
the next
think.
word.
Yeah, it was, she would stumble two words into a sentence
And then
and
by the
not be
end of
able to.
by the end of the sentence, I would forget what I was talking about. Like,
Yeah, it was very, very difficult time.
um, trying to think.
And I was lucky enough to have a job teaching that gave me
Flexibility.
plenty of days that I could take off so I could go to every doctor's appointment with her. And we were
Because I
absolutely
could not,
blessed.
I could not drive.
There's no way she could drive, and there's no way she could have talked to the doctor.
The other thing, the pain with my intestines got so severe that Nick actually had to go to the bathroom with me every time I went because I'd say about 50% of the time I would pass out from how much pain I was in. Um,
And she wanted me there to catch her before she hit the floor.
so I was terrified to go anywhere because I was afraid I'd have to go to the bathroom. Um,
And you couldn't eat anything anywhere.
no, the panic attacks were getting.
We we missed all the Christmases. We missed birthdays for everybody. We canceled everything. We just didn't go anywhere.
But every single doctor we went to, this entire time, this is years of this, going to doctor to doctor to doctor, having tests and tests done, nobody being able to give us any answers, and I just kept getting worse and worse. At a certain point, they told me I needed to see a psychiatrist because they said it was all in my head. And I, at one point, believed them because they said nothing was wrong with me physically. So I thought, well, maybe something is wrong with me psychologically. I didn't know.
I never thought there was, but when she started questioning it herself, it's really, really hard to reassure somebody.
I, and to be fair, the counselor I went to was awesome. She really gave me a lot of really useful techniques to use to stay more positive, to not get pulled down by all the mental stuff I was going through. But
It didn't
even
change the mental stuff,
no,
but
and
it
it
helped you
actually
cope.
it made me realize that what I was going through was not psychological.
Hmm.
There was something physically wrong with me. Um, so I think the worst point was when so Nick had just come home. I had been feeling extremely horrible that day. I barely got off the couch that day. He came home. Started making dinner. I wanted to help, so I got up, started helping him, and I remember just standing there, and all of a sudden I felt extremely nauseous. I had this overwhelmingly horrible pain in my head. I remember grabbing my head and saying, "Oh my god." And I remember you came behind me because you're like, "Are you okay?" And then everything went black.
At that point, she collapsed. I was assuming she just passed out, and I caught her and I laid her down on the floor. And then I realized she hadn't just passed out because she didn't come to. Um, at first, I thought it was a seizure. I wasn't sure what was going on. But then I realized that she wasn't breathing. And her face turned pale. And she wasn't coming to. And I went to check her pulse. And she had gone into cardiac arrest. And I'm was just praying like this can't be happening, but God, please help me. And it, I know when stuff like that happens, it seems like it's forever and it's going on and on and on, but she was unconscious and not breathing, and her heart wasn't beating for a lot longer than it shouldn't have been. Um, at that point, resuscitated her, and from all the movies and TV shows and things that I've watched, you resuscitate them and they gasp for air and they wake up and sorry. She woke up with her eyes rolled back in her head, screaming, just screaming like she was dying. And I was grateful because she was awake again and alive, but I didn't know. And all I could think of is something's wrong in her brain. Something, she's going to be a vegetable. I didn't know. Like I had the paramedics on the way, but at that moment it was me and it was God. And God brought her back to me. And, but the medics came and they took her to the hospital. She was conscious by the time we left the house.
I don't remember screaming. I remember waking up. I remember I could hear things first. And I remember you saying my name over and over again.
At that point, her eyes were open. She was looking around, but she said all she could do was hear me. She couldn't see me.
I couldn't move my body. Um, but no, when I remember when the paramedics came, I was fully aware then. I remember feeling wet, so I know I lost control of my bladder. Um, not my bowels, just my bladder. But took me to the emergency room. They did the blood test, and I don't remember what it's called. There is a test that they do when there's heart attack or some kind of heart event, and it shows that has taken place. My levels were elevated, showing that something had happened. So they started testing me. They did a sonogram on my heart. I had a heart cath done. We were there for over 2 days
Yeah,
doing tests. And other than that one blood test, they could not find a thing wrong with me.
and after those levels went down in her blood from her heart event, they couldn't find any sign of damage to her heart. It's like nothing had happened.
And so they said, well, maybe it's neurological. So they sent me to a neurologist, had an MRI done, had all this test done.
CT scans and all that.
They could not find anything wrong with me. And they said, well, go back home. What if it happens again?
And at that point, it's terrifying because I still have to go to work. I still have to go to my job to make the money for us so we can have medical insurance. And I'm I'm terrified to leave the house in the morning because what if she can't get up? What if she has another one of these episodes during the day? She doesn't have time to call me, and I wouldn't have time to get home. She wouldn't have time to call 911. And to go to work thinking about that and being terrified to walk through the door when I get home to walk in and not know whether she was alive or not. And every day when I got home, I would thank God because she was still awake, she was still alive, she was sitting on the couch, and she may not have been able to smile or be happy, but she was there.
And the whole time, I felt like I was trapped in my body. I felt like I was being tortured, that I couldn't escape it because I couldn't escape my body. I just wanted to be done with this life. And Nick was probably one of the few reasons why I am still here. Him pushing me each day, just telling me how much I meant to him and that he was there for me. That was the only thing keeping me going. Um,
It's it's hard to say things are going to get better when you don't think things are going to get better,
and when things are not getting better at
and
that
they just
time,
keep getting worse. But
that was
that was
the
rock
worst.
bottom.
That was the worst. We During that time period, I believe it was around that time, a little bit before, we did find a functional medicine doctor that started testing for other things that normal doctors don't test for. And they did find eventually that I had black mold in my system.
They found a few other things as well.
They did. And I'm extremely grateful for them. All the
Mhm.
doctors we went to were amazing. They, my
All of the doctors were
they
amazing.
were
They
all
were doing their
amazing and they
best.
helped me tremendously. The problem was that they had to still operate within the normal medical system. So a lot of the things they weren't allowed to do, or it was too out of the box or whatever. So it took forever for them to be able to test for each thing because they were like, well, maybe it's this. So we'll test for mold, we'll test for Lyme disease, we'll test for all these random things. But they had to do a test for each one to find out if that's what it was. They were able to figure out a few things, but at a certain point they gave you certain supplements to take to help your body naturally get rid of those things. They don't prescribe any medications. And so I took them, and I think I was taking them for almost a year,
Mhm.
and they were helping. But at a certain point, it was like everything just stagnated. It's like I didn't feel any better. I just felt like nothing was actually progressing anymore. And I was extremely grateful to them, but I felt like I couldn't go any further with them. I felt like there was something still going on that was beyond what they were treating. Excuse me. And then we happened to go into this natural food market 10 minutes down the road and got talking to the owners. And one of the owners is a naturopathic doctor. And so after talking to them for quite a while, and I still felt the same way, I still felt like I wasn't getting any better. We got an appointment with her, and when she did the first testing, their testing is completely different than the modern medical system. Um,
At that point, we got into the realm that was not covered by insurance.
oh no, this was
But
everything was out of pocket
we were very blessed that my insurance at my job had covered basically everything that had been done
up to that
up to
point.
that point. But at that at the point where we got the naturopathic doctor, we didn't care.
We,
The money
yeah,
meant nothing at that point. It's we'll do whatever it takes.
and the testing they did, it's not like they hypothesize what it could be and then test for it. The tests they do are comprehensive. And so the test she gave me back was several pages long of everything that was wrong with me. I had black mold in my system. I had several strains of black mold. A DNA test revealed that my liver actually had a problem with it where it wasn't properly detoxing. So every toxin I was exposed to, my body was just storing it in my brain tissue.
Her liver worked fine. It just didn't.
It wasn't
It
detoxing at
wasn't
all.
detoxing when it was supposed to.
But none of that showed up on normal blood tests with the regular doctors.
There was also
I
Lyme in
had
there.
chronic Lyme disease. I had a ton of parasites. I had different strands of bacteria. I had mono. I had different viruses that I was exposed to. I had, I don't even know if I can remember
And
everything that was on that
part
paper.
of what part of what she said when we went through that was a lot of these things had come about because all of your systems were down.
Yes. But so mine started because I had the genetic issue with my liver. And then I was exposed to black mold. And because of that, the black mold created an environment in my body that other toxins, other parasites, and
And
other
then it just
micro
compounded from
yes,
there.
it just got worse and worse and worse. The black mold actually damaged my brain cells. I was brain damaged from it. Nick talked a little bit about how what that looked like, me barely being able to talk, just because I couldn't think.
Well, even at the point where you got to the naturopath doctor, you couldn't put a sentence together. And I think there was once that you went in without me. I think somebody else took you or something of that sort. And she went in, but couldn't tell me what the doctor had said.
Yeah,
Or maybe I was there, but not in the room. But
yeah.
it was, she couldn't tell me what the doctor had said because she didn't remember.
So trying to think what we're up to now.
At that point, you got started on,
But us going to the naturopathic doctor, being all out of pocket, Nick actually had to take out a second job.
and you were on a lot of
Oh,
tons of supplements
yes,
and
yes.
natural
Um,
herbs and things like
because
that.
a naturopathic doctor, she's not going to prescribe medication. She's going to use natural forms of healing to help your body heal itself,
So
not mask it.
all that stuff was out of pocket. It wasn't like insurance wouldn't touch it. And we got to the point where it was so costly that my income, we were on a single income, couldn't cover what we needed to cover and be able to pay for our house payment and keep the electric on and food and all
Yeah.
that. So I did pick up a second job. Um, I would like to say that I enjoyed the second job, and I should have enjoyed it more than I did because I was working on hot rods. I was working on cars that I like, but the reason I was there is for her. And you pick up a second job, it's usually not for pleasure. It's because it's a necessity. And for me, I didn't ever question doing those things for you. I didn't question that. I didn't say, well, I don't know if I want to do a second job. It was, this is what I need to do.
So was that about was that over a year ago?
Hmm.
So that part that took a while, and that was frustrating during the healing process, because actually healing, not just masking symptoms, but healing your body is rough. It's hard on you. You are exhausted all the time. And a lot of times, like, the parts of my brain that were healing, if it was the part that had to do with anxiety, I would be anxious about what was healing. So the healing process was not a fun time. But I knew I was healing. I could feel myself getting better. Month by month, he could tell differences in me.
Her personality was coming back.
I was
She
having
she would
joy again.
joke around a little bit
Yeah.
every once in a while, and it's I we probably it had probably been 2 years that I hadn't ever really seen her joke around about anything. Um, Intimacy just didn't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a kiss before we go to bed, but she just
I couldn't.
she couldn't like it
It
was,
wasn't a possibility.
yeah. And for anybody that's going through this, that maybe their spouse, maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend or somebody, the person that's there, not the person that's going through it, but the person that's there,
It's just as hard
it's,
on them.
I wouldn't say it's just as hard, but I see you. I know how it is, and you need to know that it's going to be okay, just like the person who's going through it. And it's not easy, but
I do think it was harder for you than me. I don't think I would have been strong enough to watch you go through that. And I'm grateful every day that you were there with me every step of the way. I don't think I could have made it through without you. So that was the hardest thing we've ever gone through. To on a happy note, all of that is behind us now. I am
yeah,
not 100%. I'm still healing, but I'm me again.
yeah, you are.
My brain function is almost back to 100%. I still
one
I still get tired because my body's still healing.
one of the things that was crazy is her naturopath doctor had been going through these things and working with her, and it was probably about a year,
Over a year.
and she was really surprised to see
My
the real
personality.
personality
Yeah.
that came out, because it didn't exist when they met,
Yeah.
and suddenly there's a whole ball of personality there that hadn't been seen before by a lot of people that met her through the process.
No, my eyes are burning.
Yeah,
Um
but it did strengthen our relationship. It
so I'll talk about that in a minute, but I so the reason we went through all of that is that so people that are going through anything similar to know that there is hope, and that if you go to all these doctors and they can't give you an answer, there is a hope if you can go to a naturopathic doctor or try to find somebody that deals with natural medicines. And actually, I feel like that is why we are doing everything we're doing now. We are trying to live the healthiest lives we can because we know how important it is, and how the things we eat and the things we're exposed to and our lifestyles, how that can affect our our bodies.
everything,
So
and
that's
how it can build up and explode. And
so now we try to raise all our own animals. We try to grow our own food. We are extremely picky on what we eat because we know the importance of it. It's not about willpower anymore. It's not like, oh, I really want a Twinkie or whatever. It's like, no, that's not food. I know what that will do to me. I know that's damaging me, and I will never go back to feeling anything like what I felt like before.
I've changed the way that I've eaten completely and entirely because of what she went through, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I never understood before.
We do not use pharmaceutical drugs at all. All of the medicines we use are herbals now.
In an
Um,
emergency,
don't get me wrong, emergencies,
that's a different story.
you chop your leg off, go to the emergency room. That is important.
But
But
other illnesses,
um, yeah, if we need, like, if you would use aspirin or Advil or whatever, I use willow bark. We don't use common everyday household things for allergies. He uses cayenne pepper, and that
yeah.
actually works better than any allergy medicine he ever used
And there's
before.
other things other than medicines like that. We get into natural healing type stuff like yoga.
We both do yoga. We both meditate. We do a lot of prayer. Um, because those are the things that got us through this. We both feel very strongly now that God has given us everything that we need to heal our bodies, and we just need to pay attention. Um,
Yeah. And
so
we
I feel like
one of the other things that I did want to talk about is all the little things that you get into arguments about.
we wanted to talk about how much that has changed our relationship going through that together.
And you think about if you get into an argument with your spouse, with your significant other, even a friend, and you think about what some of those arguments are about and how petty they can be compared to the big picture of what's really important. And it gives a lot of perspective when you go through something like that. And I don't wish that on anyone. But at the same time, the love and the bond that we have with each other now is uh, we're inseparable. Like it's
Yeah, I feel like in some relationships, something like that happening would tear people apart, and for us, it made us, and yeah, inseparable. I feel like there's nothing that we could go through now that would separate
no,
us. Um,
but the
I'm not saying that we don't argue,
no, we definitely do.
but it is easier for us to take a moment and say to each other, "Is this that important?" You know, after everything we've gone through, it just seems so silly to
Yeah,
argue about. Nick has a thing with shoes. He doesn't like them in front of the front door. And I
okay,
try to put them off to the side, but every once in a while I forget. Before all this happened, we would get into arguments about the shoes.
yeah,
And
and
it's so silly,
yeah, it is.
the things that you argue about
But
when you
I
don't
think
realize how important the other person is to you.
I think the biggest takeaway from this is there's hope.
Yes.
And even when you don't think that there's a chance, when you're at rock bottom, there's more out there. There's more out there than the medical system talks about.
Things
And
that they tell you can never be fixed have been fixed in me. When I got retested, my liver is no longer showing that I have a genetic defect. It's functioning properly now. I'm properly detoxing. You know, if you went to a
yeah,
modern doctor, they would tell you that's impossible. And it
but
is possible.
yeah, there's and the story's a tough one to tell.
We
But
actually, I don't know that we've actually told our family all of it
no, and we've been putting this off, but
because we don't like to go back there. It's not a pleasant
no,
place to
it's
be.
not.
But we're very grateful that not only that we came out of it, but I'm grateful that we experienced it so that we could be this close now. And I hope a little bit of what we shared with you can help somebody, either just to give you hope or to help you realize that there's more important things in life. You know, in any way that can help. If anyone is going through anything similar or you want advice, like I'm more than happy to recommend the doctor I went to.
Just reach out to us in the comments,
Because I know a
and
lot of people are going through a lot of stuff that modern medical stuff is saying, you know, this has no cure. But there is hope for a lot of different things.
yeah,
So we hope that we gave that to you. So so thanks for listening to this very long and sad story, but it has a happy ending. Thanks.